Yes, perfect.
Okay, so welcome everybody to our 5th Kurdish Tuesday. So just to introduce myself, if people who aren't speaking could turn their mics off, just stop the background noise and stop any cross, echoes and stuff. So yes, welcome to our 5th Kurdish Tuesday. I'm Sarah Glynn from Scottish Solidarity with Kurdistan. Sharing. So as Turkish aggression is focusing on Kurdistan or the Kurdish areas of Iraq, we're very pleased that Frederike Geerdink has agreed to help us understand what's happening. So when we look at other parts of Kurdistan, we see Kurds oppressed by a hostile state. South Kurdistan, or Bashur, is more complicated than that, as it's an internationally recognized autonomous Kurdish region. As a Kurdish solidarity organization, we take no pleasure in discussing tensions between different Kurdish groups, but we recognize the importance of understanding the geopolitics of what's happening. Of course, we also recognize that Kurds, just like any other group of people, can and will embrace a wide political spectrum. And some parts of that spectrum we'll feel more comfortable with than others. But the politics of South Kurdistan aren't happening in a vacuum. They're taking place in the middle of a competition for land and power between regional and international forces. And Turkey, which is no friend of the Kurds, is attempting dangerous divide and rule tactics to promote their neo-Ottoman dreams. So, as solidarity activists, we try and analyze what's happening, and we also add our voices to those of the many Kurds around the world who are calling for different Kurdish groups to come together in opposing newly intensified Turkish invasion. But now I'm delighted to hand over to Frederike, who's spent some 15 years writing on Kurdish issues. So from 2006, she was based in Turkey, but in 2015, she was expelled from the country. And since then, she spent a year with the PKK, researching for her book on the organization, and has reported from Suleymaniye in Bashur. But just at the moment, she's been locked down in her native Netherlands. So Frederike is going to talk to us 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll open to questions. You'll notice that you're all muted and you can't chat with each other. You can send a message to me. When it comes to the questions, for those on Zoom, we'll ask you to put a virtual hand up, and then we'll unmute you. You can ask your question yourself. I think that's the nicest way of doing it, but if you'd rather write it, you can send a message to me. And I will also be monitoring the chat on the Facebook, so we should be able to read off questions from that. So without further ado, I will hand over to Frederike.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and it's very nice to see you again. We met actually in Brussels earlier this year, early February it was, at the Kurdish conference in the European Parliament. I came from Bashur then, from Suleymaniye, and I was going to go back to Kurdistan before Nevros. On my plane ticket was on the 18th of March. Well, the plane didn't go, obviously. So I'm still in the Netherlands, as you said. We kept in touch a little bit, but it's nice to see you again. And thank you for inviting me. I love talking about this issue. And the audience is growing, I see. That's nice. I think the audience has some pre-information, but I do want to point out some basic information, because maybe there's people who are like relatively new to this subject. We're talking about the situation in Bashur, which is Bashur means south, the south of Kurdistan, which is the Kurdish regions in Iraq. Like a few days ago, even there's been a bombing in which civilians were severely injured. A mother and her small son lost a leg. The father had shrapnel in his body. And also one guerrilla fighter was killed. And Turkey is in a heavy campaign against the PKK, which is bordered in the north of South Kurdistan, in the mountains there, alongside the Turkish border. And the PKK has been there since the 1980s. The PKK is focused on the struggle and the war in Turkey, but they are based in the Kurdistan in Iraq. As Sarah said, Kurdistan in Iraq has official autonomy, which is rooted in the Iraqi constitution. So that is quite territory-wise, and they have their own parliament. That's all secure in the constitution. And they are, in 2017, they tried to get independent. They didn't really try to get independence. They held a referendum for independence, and people voted, of course, as expected, for yes. But the parties in the Kurdistan region of Iraq and the PKK are not exactly friends. And this is what is not always recognized when I see articles about the aspirations of the Kurds. Often what you see is that that people put them all on one pile, like the Kurds are fighting ISIS, the Kurds want a country of their own. But there's no such thing, as there is no such thing as the Scots want this or that. Unfortunately, in Kurdistan, there's violence involved. And I want to try to explain the differences between the powers in the Kurdistan region in Iraq and the PKK, and also how they relate to the powers that be in Turkey, so with President Erdogan. And I was again confronted this week with, I had an intense conversation with an editor from the AVAL website, AHVAL news.com. I write for them, and one of the editors did a podcast with a Kurdish expert in London, actually, I think. And he also put different groups on one pile. And one of the things they said is about the aspiration for statehood. They said, yeah, the PKK doesn't really have statehood as their main goal anymore. But that's a main misconception, because the PKK is not having that as a goal at all anymore. And I pointed that out because he asked for my opinion about the podcast. And he said, yeah, of course, the PKK says that they don't want to have a nation state. But of course they do. They just say that they don't. And he's considered to be an expert on Turkish affairs. So I was kind of surprised. I said, no, they are really not wanting a state. And he said, do you really believe that? Do you really believe they don't want that? I said, I don't believe that. I know for a fact that they don't want a state. And I thought, wow, if a journalist who is specialized in Turkey and follows the politics doesn't know this, then his whole view on also the domestic dynamics in Turkey, he doesn't have a good view on that either. He doesn't really know what the Kurdish movement stands for. But the people in power in the Kurdistan region in Iraq, they do want a nation state. That's what they had the referendum for, which was in the autumn of 2017. And this is a very important difference when you look at what's going on now in, for example, with these bombings. It's called Operation Claw. Operation Claw started last year, and with every operation they do, Turkey adds something like claw tiger, claw lion. I don't know, make a whole list. I don't know all the detailed names. Every operation, like every bombing campaign, every time they cross the border. Now they cross the border into Haftanin region, one of the important area for the PKK. So all these operations are called claw, or some variation on the claw theme, you could say. And am I going too fast? If anybody is like, what do you think, Sarah? Am I going too fast, or? I don't hear you. You have muted yourself.
It's fine, I think. Nobody sent me any comments, so.
Okay, so if people do say like, oh, stop, you're going too fast, then please.
Or more, or if you need anything explained, just.
Yeah, exactly. If you need extra explanation, then do say it, because I can easily explain more. I will also explain later about why the PKK says that they do not want a Kurdish nation state. The powers in the Kurdistan region in Iraq, which is the biggest party, is the KDP. The smaller party is the PUK. They both control part of the Kurdistan region. What not many people know is that both these parties have their own Peshmerga forces. There is no there's a united ministry for Peshmerga affairs, but there's not yet. It's been working on a united Peshmerga since the region existed, but they haven't been successful yet, because these parties are controlled by powerful families and clans. And clans, it's a traditional thing, goes way back. They have their own armed groups. They have their own defense forces to protect the interests of the clan. And now they have given these clans and these families. It's a little bit. I'm making it a little bit more strong than it actually is, but you could say like they gave the clan a party name, and now it's a party. So they still have their own Peshmerga forces. These one of the problems with the Kurdistan region is that there is a lack of transparency about how it is ruled and how the income from oil is being used and distributed. It's partly sold via Turkey, and there's a lot of corruption. Any journalist who writes about corruption, investigates corruption, gets into trouble in the Kurdistan region in Iraq. The Kurdistan region in Iraq is totally depending on Turkey, economically and politically also. They have, to some extent, gained autonomy from the central Iraqi government in Baghdad, but actually they exchanged it for more dependency on Turkey. When like last year, when Turkey invaded Kurdistan and Syria, there was a big campaign in the Kurdistan region to not buy Turkish products anymore. And then it was very confronting for people, because it was very hard not to buy Turkish products. And I also, in the shops, I tried not to buy Turkish stuff. I actually, it's quite funny to tell, like I needed a vacuum cleaner. I went to this big shop and I said to the guy, okay, there were like 15 vacuum cleaners. I said, okay, which one is good, doesn't cost too much money, and is not Turkish? And he said, everything is Turkish here. Like, yeah, you can get this one from Japan or something, but it's 3 times as expensive, you know? Or you can get this one from China. It's also cheap and it's also okay. okay, you can buy the one from China, I said, but that's also a little bit problematic, isn't it? Like, you know, how do you make these choices? But then again, this counts for everything, not just for vacuum cleaners, like everything you buy. If you buy sugar, it's twice as expensive when it comes from Qatar or from wherever, or from Iran, or everything. Also, when I was in the PKK this year that I investigated my book, I was in a bakery, in the, like a hidden bakery in the forest in the mountains there, and the oat was coming from Turkey as well. So this shows how dependent the Kurdistan region in Iraq is economically of Turkey. It's also selling the oil. Income that they do have is coming from selling this oil via Turkey. So they have to keep Turkey as a friend. If they agitate Turkey too much, Turkey can at any time close the border, or as they did after the referendum, first Baghdad closed the airports of Suleimania and Erbil, the two international airports in the Kurdistan region, to punish the region for the referendum. But after Baghdad opened the airports again, Turkey closed them, and Turkey can close them because almost all international flights go via Turkish airspace. So Turkey said, we don't allow any planes in our airspace that come or go to these airports. So Turkey has an iron grip on the region. And if the powers in Kurdistan region in Iraq don't cooperate sufficiently in the fight of the Turkish state against the PKK, they might be in trouble, and then the shops can be empty within a week. So that's a very big risk. And people are already unsatisfied in the Kurdistan region in Iraq because of the lack of jobs, because of the corruption and clientelism, and they can't afford to have empty shops because they are not really that much backed by the people. The result is that Turkey has since years already, some 20 military bases in the Kurdistan region in Iraq. And they are facilitated by the authorities in the Kurdistan region. And the Kurdistan region doesn't object against the bombings. Like Baghdad is often more vocal against the bombings by Turkey than the Kurdistan region actually is. And when the leaders of the Kurdistan region say something about the bombings, they make it a sort of a both sides kind of story. Like, yeah, the bombings are problematic. That would even already be a strong wording. But the PKK has to leave our lands. That's mainly the problem. Like, the PKK is here in the mountains, and if they would leave, then the problem would be solved. Then the Kurdistan region, the mountains would not be bombed anymore. So they say the solution is the PKK has to go, which is not really a good beginning for Kurdish unity. Because I talked a lot about this with fighters, and I also had this idea, like, the Kurdistan region, of course, doesn't belong to the leaders of the Kurdistan region. It's Kurdish territory. Kurdistan is bigger than the Kurdistan region in Iraq. And every Kurd, at least you would say from a Kurdish perspective, has the right to be anywhere in Kurdistan. This is also what the Kurdish movement in Turkey says, like, we don't want these borders on our lands. We don't want the borders between Kurdistan in Turkey and in Iraq, and the borders between Kurdistan in Iraq and Syria and Iran. We want these borders gone because they are not our borders. They divide families, they divide communities. Kurds should be able to easily travel in the whole of Kurdistan. and the land belongs to all of them. So how could you ask the PKK to leave their own lands? Where else would they have the right to be than on their own lands? And they say and I agree. What should happen is to solve the Kurdish issue in Turkey. If the Turkish state makes a serious effort to solve the Kurdish issue, then there will be no more attacks from the mountains in the north of Iraq. There will be maybe still training camps. I mean, depends on the deal that would be brokered, but then there wouldn't be attacks anymore against the Turkish state from the PKK, and that would of course be the more solid solution, the more lasting solution. Also, the PKK, where could the PKK go? I mean, they have nowhere else to go, so you can't expel them anyway. But for the Kurdish issue in Turkey to be solved, very fundamental change has to be implemented in Turkey. And that brings me to why the PKK doesn't want a Kurdish nation state. They wanted that in the beginning when they were founded in 1978. Their goal was to have an independent Kurdistan because they considered the southeast of Turkey occupied, and Turkey had to go, and then they would have their own country. And they still consider Turkey an occupying power, like Iran is in the Kurdish regions in Iran and etc. But they don't see an independent state as a solution anymore. And this has to do, actually, you could say, with the fabric of of Turkey and the fabric of Kurdistan and the wider region, actually, that it is a very diverse land. The parts of Kurdistan in Turkey are called by many Kurds Bakur, and Bakur means north, so that's North Kurdistan. But if you ask some Armenians, they would say that's not North Kurdistan, and that's not Southeast Turkey, that's actually Western Armenia. So, and they are all right. There's Turks living there, maybe not historically, but now there's Kurds living there, and they are in the majority now. But before the genocide a century ago, there were the Armenian population was very big, and there's still a lot of Armenian heritage in the region. So what the PKK has said, and this change started in the 1990s. That's also why I was so surprised that this journalist didn't know, because it's a change that started like more than 20 years ago. If you make again a nation state, you will again have a majority. And in these lands, or anywhere in the world, actually, you will have minorities as well. And what are you going to do with the minorities? What are you going to do with minorities in a country called Kurdistan? Even the name doesn't give space to other people, to Turkmen who live in Kurdistan, to Arabs, to Yazidis are Kurds as well, in general, considered to be Kurds. Like you don't do just to the other populations that live there, just like when the Republic of Turkey was founded in 1923, they called it Turkey, the land of the Turks. But that was not even really an identity before Turkey was founded. Atatürk, the father of the founding father of Turkey, he started to create a Turkish identity. And then everybody who was not a Turk was also, forced to be a Turk. So PKK says, if we make an independent Kurdistan, we repeat this mistake. And we should not fight that's some sort of a saying. I don't know who said it, but like you cannot fight the master with the master's tools. So you can't fight your own oppression by repeating the system of oppression. So we have to make a system, democracy from the bottom up, and give people in municipalities and in neighborhoods and cities, in villages, we have to give them real control over their lives. We have to organize them on a grassroots level. And if we do that, and if we give people real power to decide their own destiny and give them real self-determination, then we will undermine the state structure. We will undermine the state structure in Turkey, in Iraq, in Syria, everywhere where the Kurds live. And that is what the Kurdish movement in Turkey has been working on for a long time. Also, when I lived in Diyarbakir between 2012 and 15, part of that was the peace process. And once I was invited to a meeting of a neighborhood council sort of thing. I wasn't in the city then, unfortunately, so I couldn't go. But of course, this didn't have any legal foundation because the law doesn't allow it, but it was sort of a practice. And people took it very seriously. But in Syria, they suddenly got the chance to implement the system as well. And they didn't, I talked with guerrillas about this too. They always had the feeling that they would start the first place where they would implement the system, this grassroots democracy in Turkey, that there would be the first chance. And then the revolution started in Syria and it turned into a war. And suddenly in 2012, Assad decided to withdraw his troops from the Kurdish regions to fight on front lines elsewhere in the country. And the Kurds thought, this is our chance. We never knew we got the chance to do it in Syria, but suddenly we get the chance. So they started building this system in the northeast of Syria. And they also do it outside the Kurdish regions in Syria, for example, in Raqqa, which I visited last year. And they don't give the Kurds control over Raqqa. They give the locals control. When I was in Raqqa, I talked to many people. I hardly met any Kurds. It's all Arabs running the city. And the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, of which the Kurds are a part, they defend it. But of course, we all know how much power Erdogan already has, and you know he only wants to be more powerful, and he knows very well that if he solves the Kurdish issue in Turkey, then the whole state structure will have to come down. He even centralized the system more. Turkey's always been a very centrally governed country, but he introduced the presidential system, and it's even more centrally governed now. But what he needs to do to solve the Kurdish issue is radically decentralize. And that is really against the foundations of the state of Turkey. So it's very, very threatening for Turkey. That is why Turkey finds the Kurdish movement in Syria more dangerous than Islamic State, because Islamic State is a security problem. You can, with the help of international community, you can fight them military, and you can throw them off their territory. Not that Turkey is very fanatic in contributing to that struggle, but it's a security issue. While the PKK and the YPG and YPJ in Syria, they are a fundamental threat to the foundations of the Turkish state. So that's why they are so vehemently against that. And it's actually the same, to connect the dots in my story. It's actually the same with the authorities in the Kurdistan region in Iraq, because they are also centered around power. It's a highly patriarchal system. You never see any woman in these clans playing any role of substance. And if the PKK or this grassroots democracy ideology, if that would also start growing in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, it would erode the power of the people who are in power now. So in that respect, they are both centered around the idea of a state, which is again the same with Islamic State, of course. This is not only in that region. It's also in Europe. Like, we always think people want a state. If people don't have a country, like the Kurds are not the biggest nation without a country, but if there's a nation without a country, like, oh yeah, they need a country or they deserve a country. But in international law, there's no such thing as the right to have your own nation state. But there is a thing called the right to self-determination. And self-determination and a nation state are not like the same things. You can determine your own fate without having a nation state. So that is what the PKK aspires to. We eradicate the whole idea of nation states. We just let the people govern themselves. And if they have a village or a region that is only Kurdish, then people can speak Kurdish and send their children to school where they learn Kurdish. But if there is also a group of Assyrians living there, they will have the right to have their own school, to send the children to their own school and learn their own language. That's also what you see in the northeast of Syria. They have 3 official languages: Arab, Assyrian, and Kurdish. So everybody just has their rights. If you want to build a church, go ahead, build a church. Go to church whenever you like. Everything is free. And this is very threatening for leaders who are very keen on power and also have to defend their power, because if they lose it, they might end up in court and in jail. So that's where you see that it would also be in a way hard to find Kurdish unity, although there's very hopeful developments in Syria, because in Syria the Kurdish movement is talking with another with an opposition Kurdish group about reconciliation, but this opposition group is actually backed and paid by Turkey, so eventually Turkey will stop this agreement probably, but they are really seriously talking about getting together and becoming stronger together against Turkey's threat, but also against a possible invasion from Assad, which is not really on the agenda now. But so that's how you can look at the current bombings also, why it is so tremendously important for Turkey to keep on bombing the PKK instead of setting up a negotiation table, and why the Kurdish leaders in the Kurdistan region in Iraq are not really protesting. It's because they are economically dependent on Turkey, but also they want a nation state on their own as well, for themselves as well. And the PKK's ideology is also threatening that. So there's a Kurdish Brotherhood, but at the same time, there's a lust for power. Dots. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And I'm sure there'll be some questions. I don't know if anybody has got their hand up. Let me just, well, people are thinking, oh yeah, we've got a hand up from Nick there. So I'll unmute you, Nick. Have I oh, I think you have to, oh, why can't I unmute you? Yeah, that's it. Nick. Nick, you there? To ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Sorry. I was just taking this piece of tape off, but anyway, so thank you. There we go. Hi. Thank you, Frederike. That was really
Sorry.
great.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Now you. Yeah. It was a little bit noisy, but yeah. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you. That was a really great talk, and I share your shock that someone who considers themselves a specialist on those issues could think that really the Kurdish freedom movement and PKK are secretly wanting a nation state. It's a really common misconception that I think just shows how much people have combined self-determination and having a nation state, that they can't believe that a movement could be committed to not having it. But actually my question comes from a real point of ignorance. I've never really understood. In your talk, you spoke about, you mentioned that there's the PUK and the KDP, and that they have the KDP controls Erbil in the region, and Suleimani is PUK. But I never really understood the differences in the relationships between the PUK and the KDP's relationships with the PKK, because it seems like Suleimani is an easier place for people who are closer to the PKK, and that often there'll be crackdowns or arrests that take place in Erbil that won't happen in Suleimani. But at the same time, the PUK and the Talabani clan, they don't protest. It's not like they're publicly aligned. So I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more on some of those nuances, some of the differences.
Yes. Nice question. Thanks. Well, it has some historical reasons as well, that the PUK is less opposed to the PKK, because the PUK has been more of a city party and has more of a social democratic background, which is closer to the much even more patriarchal structures in the KDP, which is more of a more rural, has more rural background. Also with the bombings now, the bombing that happened last week was like 25 kilometers outside Suleimania in the regions that are controlled by the PUK. And this is also for a reason. This is, it happened in a village actually, or at the edge of a village. If you drive through the towns, there's like this main street, and there's like small mini markets. And one of these, there was a car with guerrillas in it, and they stopped because they wanted to buy some stuff at the mini market. They got out of the car, and then they were bombed. And also the mini market was destroyed, and the family that owned the mini market was injured. And this is not like an accident. Turkey is of course doing that on purpose to hit so close to the towns. They've done that in KDP regions, because most of the mountainous regions are in KDP area. But they do it now in PUK areas too, to try to separate the PKK and the PUK more, to make people in the PUK areas resist the PKK more. Because in general, when I talk to people in Sulaymaniyah, they are sort of proud of the PKK's existence as well, and they wouldn't like openly support them. They vote for PUK and they are proud of their city and their party, but they have some honor in protecting the PKK as well, and this is what Turkey wants to destroy. And it wants to empty villages. So the more they accidentally, this is not a, they cannot sell this as an accident, of course, because it was a non-driving car on the edge of a city and civilians were injured. Like, it's not an accident, but it may scare people enough to leave villages. And that's an old tactic of Turkey. They've done that in the 1990s in Turkey as well. And they would like to empty more villages in the Kurdistan region in Iraq. And they have the KDP in their pocket, but the PUK is not that much aligned with Turkey, but more aligned with Iran. So this dynamic also plays a role. That Sulaymaniyah could, if they get in economic trouble, they could get more assistance from Iran and forget about Turkey. But they have to also, to a certain extent, after the referendum, the airports were closed, first by Baghdad, and when Baghdad opened them again, like what I said, then Turkey closed its airspace to planes from Kurdistan. And the KDP airport in Erbil, KDP airport sounds a little bit, the airport in Erbil was opened again rather quickly, but in Sulaymaniyah it stayed closed for, I think, a year or a year and a half. And in this time you could see that the PUK was pressuring and clamping down on PKK-related associations in the city more. Like, journalists were harassed. There was a local NGO that was closed, and their offices were, under siege by PUK Peshmerga. And eventually, they apparently did enough against associations that support this grassroots democracy, and then eventually it opened again. That was also because actually Barham Salih was visiting Turkey. Barham Salih is the president of Iraq, and the president of Iraq is always a Kurd. And this time Barham Salih was elected, and he is a representative of the PUK from Sulaymaniyah. So he went on he's a very pragmatic man. He went on an official visit to Turkey, and after that the airport was closed again. So possibly this pressure helped. And also Barham Salih stood up and spoke in favor of Soleimani, and then the airport was opened again. But Turkey tries all the time to pressure the PUK to distance itself and clamp down more and allow Turkey more military access to fight the PKK.
Thank you. I can see that we've got Neil wanting to speak, but just before that, did Farsia, did you want to speak? Are you here? Do you want to speak from Kobani? Sorry, can someone unmute her? See if she. Yeah, there we are. Oh. Why can I not? Or maybe, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, Sarah. Good
Hello.
night for everyone, for every participant here, for you and Frederike.
Nice to see you.
In Kobani, I would talk about the massacres that Kobani exposed to it before many days, and about the also massacres happened in Kobani in 2015, and what happened between two them, and what people are living, how people are living here under the attacking and the risk of Turkey. In 2015, Kobani was exposed to massacres, and the result was in exactly in 2015 on the 25 June. It happened at night at 5 between 2 and 5 o'clock at night. Kobanian people were asleep. Groups of terrorists from ISIS entered Kobani with where they wear the clothes of YPG, and with this appearance they appeared to the people, and even they knocked the doors, and the result at that night they killed more than 250 people, and also more about 250 people were injured. Some of them are now disabled. Some of them have now a psychological problems. So these massacres happened after the liberation of Kobani. You know, Kobani, how Kobani was occupied by ISIS, and ISIS, why Kobani was occupied by ISIS. It is also I think more of the people who now follow us know, because here we, after the breakout of the crisis in Syria, here we in Kurdish area, we built self-administration which is democratic, and in this administration all the components who are in Syria, from Kurdish, Arab, Turkmen, and Cherkess, and Christian, all of them shared this administration. And so it is a democratic project, and all the people see themselves in this project, and all the components share it and lead themselves for the first time. For the first time, people here, we, especially as Kurdish people, we learn with our language, and also the Cherkess and the Armenian people, all the components here for the first time see the light here in Syria, and learn with their languages. So because Turkey also have another project, another target, and the democracy project is they don't want a democratic project. They don't want a democratic system to be built in this area, and especially this area on the border of Turkey. All the time they say that we are dangerous for the security of Turkey. Even we have no dangerous. The SDF and also PKK don't have any, as they declared also that they don't have any dangerous or any risk on Turkey. So they fight our democratic system. First of all, with ISIS, they support ISIS, Turkish country, Turkish regime, AKP's regime support ISIS, and they occupied Kobani and besieged, first of all, besieged Kobani from the three parts, from south, east, and from the west, and the north side is with Turkey. After they besieged Kobani, then they occupied it, but they can't occupy, ISIS can't occupy the whole canton. Still remains part of Kobani with the hand of Yataga. So the resistance, battle of resistance began in Kobani directly with their occupation, and the city liberated from ISIS on they occupied Kobani and entered it on 16 September 2014, and the city liberated on 27 January 2015. After that, in order to revenge from this liberation and from this freedom, so they entered Kobani secretly, and a massacre happened, and 500 people were exposed to this massacre, and some of them now are really, they are in a difficult state. Before many days, on 23 of this month of June, also we exposed to a Turkish drone on a village near to Kobani, about 5 kilometers, and it is a civil home, and there were in the home only 3 women. They are sitting, and also the drone killed the 3 women. 2 of them were activists, women activists. They defend about the woman's right. One of them is a mother, and she is a normal lady. So another time we see that whenever we approach from the anniversary of the massacre, another massacre happened, and this time Turkey directly happened the drone of the Turkey, because in this area there is nobody, there is stability, there is everything is okay. Just we have on the border of Turkey, and all the time they attack from here and there, all over the border, and this drone came from Turkey and killed the civilian women, civilian people here, and their aim to people, in order for people to afraid, and or in order also to destroy the foundations, the self-administration that we did here. Already they occupied Afrin, they occupied Sarekone and Giresupi, and so that they want also all the time we have threatened that why Kobani still living their freedom, why Kobani is still why they don't occupy Kobani. So this is a message that whenever you were, even if you were in your house, even you were everywhere, I will kill you. I will. But but the strange thing, but the sadistic thing is that no UN, no human organization, and no one, they still silent, don't say nobody inside or in view of all over the world. Turkey regime occupy do this things and all the time in order to plant the fear between our people. Even though our women now they decided to lead also to do also their work as an activists. It is our work, and also we want from the women's organization, human organization in the world, not to just look at the accidents that happened here and there. We want to hear their voice. We want all the world, all the democratic organization, democratic people who who support us in the liberation of Kobani, or also another time to support us in such accidents that our people all the time exposed to it. Really, in these days, about a week, we live difficult days. We live such an attacks from Turkey that make us also make me and make us also to raise our voice to all of you, to all the people, but to hear us. We want also your support and the support of whenever you go, you must also say this, raise or reach our voice to the places that you go, places that can do something for the civilian people here. All the time we want no fly zone for this area, no fly zone. Even there is an agreement between Turkey and the coalition on 17 October and 22 October on 2019. Even though we exposed to the drones and people also all the time from here and there, from in the villages on the border, or not also on the border, even the villages in south of Kobani, women were killed in the result of the drone attack. Also in Afrin, I can say also in Afrin, all the time Kurdish people exposed, also they kidnapped. They were now in the secret prison. They kidnapped them, obliged them to put hijab also on their hair. In others, for before many days, also they found a Kurdish girl. She was killed, and they all the time her family search about her, but after many days they saw her in others. She was killed. During the beside, you know, Kurdish woman, also Yazidis woman,
Whoops. I'll
Yeah,
just give,
sound gone. Yeah.
give it, nah. Well, it's amazing really to hear from people in Kobani at all, I think. I don't know.
Definitely. Yes.
I don't know if you, yes, if you just, we'll go to Neil in a minute with his question, but if you want to make any comment about the sort of links between what's happening in the Syrian side and what's happening in the Bashar side, Frederike, just to sort of tie it all together, because obviously Turkey is sort of hitting out all round, really. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting to hear again these days of the fight against ISIS in 14 and 15. I was on the Turkish side of the border following it, and I could visit Kobani a few days after the liberation, or one day after the liberation, even that Turkey opened the gates for a group of journalists. They couldn't resist it anymore. Like they couldn't resist our pressure anymore. But I've been to northeast Kurdistan, northeast Syria, the last time last January actually, and it's really remarkable how active people are in building this society. And you hear, you know, that is what always strikes me there. You hear what she also told us, like you hear all the tragedy that happens, the attacks from Turkey and the invasion in October last year, and they occupy part of the land, and you know, all this tragedy is going on. And when it happened last year in October, this invasion of Turkey, I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to northeast Syria again, you know, it's over. And there I found myself again in January, like traveling around there with actually a film group, the Rojava Film Commune, who were traveling around and doing the premiere of their latest film. And they say, yeah, you know, we are, our daily life, our actions, our revolution, we let it be influenced by Turkey as little as possible. We keep going with what we are doing. And they are very determined. And that is what I always find very inspirational in northeast Syria. And it's driving Erdogan crazy, of course, because he can't, you know, he can't get them finished, you know.
Thank you. Shall we unmute Neil and let him ask his questions? If I can unmute him. That's it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. It's all very interesting. I have a question for Frederike. And when you were answering your question to Nick, I think you started to touch on it a little bit. I was just interested if you wanted to say anything about the role of Russia in the region. And you did start to touch on the role that Iran is playing in the region. So something perhaps about what you might call the bigger players in the region. And also we had a meeting in the Kurdistan Solidarity Network about a week or two ago, and one or two people in the chat section raised the question of what Israel's doing in the area. I wonder if you've got any thoughts about that?
Thank you. I can't go into detail about Israel's role in the region. Actually, it's, you know, I'm very much a journalist with my feet in the mud, you know. So I know what I go somewhere and I check out what I see, what is happening here, and I read and I talk to people, and but this whole international play, it's very hard to say something about it in a short period of time without me having to do extra research, you know, because that's also not what I write about. I don't write about the whole big international play, and Israel is like I don't see the Israeli army on the ground there or something, you know, it's not something, so it's too big, it's too big. But for Russia, for example, I've been thinking like, it's good to know what Russia's interest is. And it doesn't seem that it is in any way in Russia's interest to help Assad take over the northeast of the country again. Because for Russia, it's very important to have a presence on the in Latakia, for example, with the harbor. But the northeast of Syria has not really a strategic interest for them. Assad's army is too small or too weak to take the northeast of the country back, and I don't think Russia is willing to make a war with America there, because they would hit America as well. America withdrew, but they're still there, as Trump says, to protect the oil. They have the oil, so they wouldn't risk that. That's why I think like the northeast Syria is under threat, but not for the time being, not really under an existential threat like Assad is going to take over again. And Iran's role in the region is like, of course, competing with Turkey again, but it's also very covert. And let me not get into that if that's okay.
Neil, for your question. There's a couple of points on the Facebook page and a couple of questions. So
yeah,
just read them out. I'll give you them at the same time. Well, first of all, Karux Haji said the politicians in Iraqi Kurdistan are corrupt, and that's a big issue, which obviously you touched on. Avan Rafiq Shwani, he said the system in KRG didn't work on building any infrastructure to become self-dependent due to their corruption. And Turkey's main aim is to change the demographics of the area and redraw the borders, taking it back to how it was during the Ottoman Empire. So the PKK is the reason. It's Turkey's fascism and greedy ambitions to invade and make Turkey the ultimate power in the region. And he said it's a model of governance like Rojava that would mean that all ethnic and religious minorities can live a peaceful, free life. So then there's a question, which is that you had been speaking about one of the included parties was losing power, and it wasn't clear who you were referring to. So could you explain a bit more about who lost the power? And the other question is actually Paul Christian Namfi, who says hello to Sarah, and he's saying his question for Frederike is, you presented very well the first component of democratic confederalism, direct democracy, in your talk regarding the strategy to structure society. My question is about genealogy and women's emancipation. It's said that Bashir is much more advanced in terms of women's empowerment than the rest of Iraq. But what has your experience been of comparing the status of women in political, judicial, and social decision-making in Bashir versus Rojava? For example, Rojava, where democratic confederalism is more fully implemented. That's the questions from the Facebook page.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, it's true what people say about the corruption and not building any infrastructure in the Kurdistan region in Iraq. Also, one of the big problems is what they've been talking about forever is diversifying the economy. It's not happening at all. Like a very high percentage of the people is working for the administration, are civil servants. They're not getting paid because the economic crisis is really immense. And that's of course also tied to the corruption. If you give people other ways to make their living and make a living independent of the parties, then you lose power, you lose your grip. You can't even get a pension without being a party member. So if you see high party membership, yeah, you know, you have to be, because without it you can't make a living. So that is indeed a very big problem, and yeah, it's not addressed in any way. Who lost power? Did I say some group lost power? Let me think. I'm not sure, actually. I can't recall. Do you, Sarah?
I think you said that people would worry about losing power, not that anybody had lost power. That
yeah.
holding on power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if this idea of grassroots democracy gets stronger, that the people in power lose their power. Yeah. Well, thank you for the genealogy question, which is about the Jin is a woman in Kurdish, so genealogy is womanology, and I love this question because there are a lot of misunderstandings about the role of women, and I would love to explain, because it's directly tied to the movement's view on being against the nation state. The misunderstanding is sometimes that the movement uses women to get attention in the international arena and in international media, that they put women on the front with their colorful scarves around their neck or around their head, with their Kalashnikovs, fighting ISIS. And that is just a cosmetic thing. But that is totally not the case. And if you tell women in the PKK or in the YPG in Syria, for example, like, okay, Marie Claire did a feature on you, they are like appalled, really. They don't want to have anything to do with this capitalist glossy magazine kind of world. They would prefer not to be in it. And feminism, actually, I would call the Kurdish movement, in essence, a feminist movement, and not feminist in the way that is often explained in European countries, like, you know, women have to take, you know, have to become leaders of industry. Like they say, no, we should break down capitalism. We shouldn't take roles in it. We should break it down. And they, every time, this is kind of funny, every time I'm giving a talk about this issue, I know eventually I will go back to the Neolithic times, because that's what always happened when I talked with PKK or with YPG fighters about this issue, about anything ideological. They would say, okay, we have to go to Neolithic times. I would say, okay, that's a little bit far. Can we do the last 100 years or so, history-wise? They would say, no, it's all connected to the Neolithic, so we have to go there. And it's true, because in the Neolithic times, there was a matriarchal society. And scientists also agree on that. There's not that much knowledge about it, but what we do know is that it was more centered around matriarchy, around women. For example, they had a system of they had a system of goddesses, not like one god, but goddesses. And that there was more equality in society, and the community was very important. And that is where the PKK gets its inspiration from. They say these are, they call themselves a woman also. They say the PKK is a woman, the YPJ is a woman, and the state is a man. The state is a patriarchal structure, and it is directly tied to capitalism. These are all structures of power. And we need to break down structures of power if we want real equality. And this is the nation state. It's always around power. And the nation state is connected to capitalism. Capitalism is about power, about suppressing people. Patriarchy is about power. So women should not have a place in patriarchy. Women should break it down and not strive for leading positions in the nation state, in capitalism. You know, we should break them down. And that's why women have an equal role. That is also the rule in the autonomous administration in the northeast of Syria. You also in Raqqa, the Arab city where I was, there are women everywhere. I go to this big building of the municipality, and in whichever office I came, there was a woman. And they are the co-leaders of commissions, and they are journalists. They take every role, but not as a role of power, but as a facilitating role. And that's also what I saw in the PKK. Sometimes I was at a base for like a week, and I still wouldn't know who the commander was. And sometimes it was the most quiet guy. Or I thought the woman with the most confidence was the commander of the women's group, but it turned out not to be the case. Because also the commanders, except when it's war, because then you need somebody to give orders. But in daily life, the commanders are facilitating their people and not ordering them. I've never, ever, ever seen a commander giving an order to anybody. Yeah, their goal is to encourage people to develop themselves. So that is also what you could say of the whole system, and what the PKK strives to implement in society, that they facilitate the people to develop and rule themselves. And that is what you also see in the ranks in the armed forces. And they say this is a very matriarchal way of looking at society. And you can never, that is in essence incompatible with a nation state. So when I hear somebody say who thinks he has a clue, says like, yeah, PKK is secretly still striving for a nation state. No, it is like in the root of their ideology to resist that. And PKK people say, if Öcalan, like who developed the ideology based on the ideas of Murray Bookchin, if he would be handed an independent Kurdistan on a golden plate, he would still refuse it, because it would be a continuation of the problem. And the Middle East is also very diverse historically. Now we often say in the West, we say it's the Arab world or the Islamic world, but that's a very wrong way to look at the region, because the Islam has its roots here, but Christianity has as well, and Judaism has its roots in this region. There are Arabs, there are Turkmen, there are Kurds, there are Armenians, Assyrians, Yazidis, so incredibly many groups. So the whole idea of nation state is not applicable to the region, because whichever country you carve out, there will be another group again, be a minority, and will they have a state too? It doesn't make sense. And this is in itself a very matriarchal ideology.
I think the questioner, Frederike, also asked you to comment on the position of women in Bashur and
yes.
how it's compared with the rest of Iraq.
Yeah, that's like I said before, in Bashur, you never see women at all. In the leading positions, I mean, there's a few women in parliament, but they are not encouraged to take a lead. And you see the same, of course, in Turkey. Erdogan's government is not in any way encouraging the empowerment of women and equality of women. And you could see this in an ideological way as well, that Turkey is cracking down on this movement because it is so feminist, because it is a different force. It's a female force, which is very strong. And that is, you see that in all heavily patriarchal systems. You see it in America as well. Trump is, you know, I don't have to explain to anybody how this is applicable to Trump as well. But you could see it in the Kurdistan region in Iraq too. This is not a system that gives, that enables women's forces to influence the system, because if they really would, then it would scratch it would start scratching power, and that is what patriarchal systems resist, and that's why they, you know, the power, those empowering Kurdistan in Iraq, that's why they want a nation state, because then their power is institutionalized. They want, nobody can take it away again. And they can go to the World Bank and they can go everywhere to get more money. They can become an oil player and they can become richer and more powerful than they already are. And a hardcore feminist movement is really the last thing they want.
Thank you. I think Horn has had his hand up for ages.
Oh.
Hold on, no, I failed to do that. That's it. Anna?
Yes, yeah. Hello, everyone. And thank you who is sharing tonight this Zoom for Kurdish solidarity. So we know it's Turkish now, they attacked all area. There is a Kurd, doesn't matter there is PKK or whoever. We know that the Turkish, they want the full occupation of Kurdistan and the consideration border of Ottoman power now. So, and also we know is they have a one agreement between Russia and American and Syrian democratic forces, Assad, to protect it, security of Rojava or Kobani. So now we see the Turkish attacked the Kobani villages and killed Kobani woman star, and also they attacked Sinjar and Yazidi place. So what happened now? Where is the agreement between Assad and American and Russian? Which going on? Which gonna happen the next?
Yeah, well, there's different things going on here, because of course Shingal is in Iraq. Should I say something about Shingal?
Yes.
Yeah, Turkey attacked, and also, like you said, in Kobani, killed 3 women like a week, 10 days ago. Turkey gets away with it, whichever agreement there is, because, like I said, Russia will not do something about it because it's not in their interest. And Assad is fine with Turkey doing these things. Well, Assad sent some, when Turkey invaded in October last year, a deal was made to to allow Assad's troops into the Kurdish autonomous region to be stationed along the border, because the deal was that the YPJ or the SDF would withdraw from there. And that was also, so that's why I'm wondering, like, which deal exactly are you referring to? Because there was also a deal that Turkey would not attack if the SDF and YPG would withdraw from the border. And the YPG did withdraw from the border at several places. And then Turkey came in anyway. And then YPG said, okay, we're not going back to the border because we don't want to provoke Turkey. So let Assad's troops come to the border and defend it. And this also, that was also a reason why I thought I wouldn't be back in northeast Syria, because I thought if I go into Syria from Kurdistan in Iraq, it will be considered an illegal border crossing in the eyes of Syrian army, and they might arrest me. That's of course not a risk I'm willing to take. But it turned out that Assad's army is actually so weak that the SDF said, okay, you are stationed across the border to prevent Turkey from coming in other places as well. But we don't want your army to send you food, because then the army would have to go through our territory all the time. We don't want that. So we are, as SDF, we are going to provide you with food. And then it turned out that Assad's men were surprised about the amount of food that they got. And they were asking, is this for today or for the week? And SDF said, this is only for today. And they were like, oh, okay, we're not used to that. Usually we get something like this for the whole week. So it's like, they have a very weak position. And Russia is not intent to make it any stronger. And Shengal is again different, because Shengal is in Iraq and it is outside the Kurdistan region. For a long time, the KDP has been in control before 2014. And then ISIS came. The KDP was supposed to protect the Yazidis against ISIS, but KDP ran away, the Peshmerga ran away. There has not been any investigation into why exactly that happened, but probably they were chicken shit and they were not willing to risk their lives for the Yazidis. And then PKK came from the mountains and made a corridor to Syria and help people to save whatever they could save at that moment. And one of the things that's very important for PKK is self-defense. They say it's a legitimate right of everybody to defend themselves. So they established the YBS, the Shengal Protection Forces, which is a local force. It has a men's force and a women's force as well. And they trained them and they educated them. And in 2018, I think, or 18, 19, PKK left Shengal and said, okay, the local forces are trained now, and they are now under the command of the Iraqi army, who came back to Shengal and is in control now. So KDP had to leave after helping with PKK to kick ISIS out again. Oh my God, it's complicated. But in Turkey's eyes, the PKK is still there. And maybe there are a few PKK commanders who are still with the local forces, but the local forces in Turkey's eyes are also PKK. For Turkey, it's all PKK. So that's why they bomb the barracks of the local Yazidi defense forces. So these are the defense forces that were set up after the genocide happened. The genocide is ongoing. And it's a self-defense who would deny a people which is subject to genocide their right to self-defense. Well, Turkey is, because this group was set up and trained by PKK. So they bomb them, and they say, because people are ignorant, they get away with it. They say, we don't want Shengal to turn into a new Kandil, like the mountains in the Kurdistan region in Iraq. So we have to eradicate blah, blah, blah. But Shengal is a very different situation. The mountains in the Kurdistan region in Iraq, there's no such thing in the Shengal region. There is one mountain, Shengal Mountain. For the rest, I've been a few times in Shengal region. It's flat as a pancake. The border is flat. It's relatively far away from the border. There is no threat whatsoever from Shengal to Turkey, zero. There never has been. But Turkey feels threatened because the stronger Shengal becomes on its own, the more it's undermining structures of nation states, and Turkey doesn't want that. So that's why they attack. And I find it terrible to see, because it's a self-defense force of a nation that is still going through a genocide. So it is really very painful what's happening there.
Thank you very much, Frederike. I know we've an hour and a half, and we sort of agreed that. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, I don't know. You have more, like, are there many more questions? Because, I'm fine. We could go on like 10 minutes or so. I don't know.
Yes, got their hand up, I don't think. So I just wondered if you could say how important you think the whole sort of neo-Ottoman, Turkey's neo-Ottoman, particularly perhaps with the centenary of the beginning of the Turkish Republic in 2023. It's been particularly pointed out that the choice of some of the areas where the attacks are very much, fitting in with that picture of rebuilding the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah. Well, I think it is Erdogan's aspiration to broaden Turkey's, not only Turkey's influence, but even the territory. He lays historic claims to Kirkuk, to Mosul. In what you see in the regions in Syria that Turkey occupies. Like they openly ask in Turkey, we need teachers in Syria. So if you speak Arabic, come to Syria and teach the schools. And they name the schools after Turkish heroes. They put a Turkish flag. They put a portrait of Erdogan. Also in the post office, they employ their teachers. They give them Ottoman history in school. They teach the children Turkish besides Arabic. In the Idlib region, they've introduced the lira as next to the Syrian pound as a legal currency. Well, the Syrian pound is doing dramatically bad. So maybe for the local population, in a practical way, maybe it is helpful, but it's of course an occupation tactic to eradicate what is local and what is from the people. And in the Kurdistan region in Iraq, in the area under control of the KDP, which is the border regions, Turkey is taking control actually of villages. So they have bases, but they also control villages. And yeah, it's definitely tied to the Ottoman aspirations of Erdogan. Of course, he wants to be president in 2023, when the Republic celebrates 100 years of existence. But he's also aiming at, what was the other year again? sometimes he mentions, I think, 2070. There's something in the history of the Ottoman Empire in 70, and he aspires again, makes people dream about how big Turkey will be then. And you see maps also. Erdogan or others in the state apparatus sometimes use maps where, like, hey, that's not the current borders of Turkey. Turkey's getting a little bit bigger. So yeah, it's definitely one of the. But the interesting thing is, actually, that during much of the Ottoman era, the Kurds had autonomy. They didn't pay taxes, and they didn't send their sons to the army to serve in the Ottoman army. And many Turks deny this because they don't learn that in school, of course. But I think, you know, it's a nice thing to actually think about. It would be a good thing to discuss. Would Erdogan be willing to give the Kurds some sort of autonomy again? Because if, you know, Ottoman Empire was big, it was for a reason that the Kurds got autonomy, because they were on the edges of the empire, bordering Persian Empire. The Kurds were very divided, like they were not one Kurdish. There was not, nationalism wasn't so strong then, so there were clans defending the borders of the empire, and in exchange for that they had autonomy. But the clan leaders were working with the authorities in Istanbul, in the capital, to they were in charge, and they were clan leaders, and the people worked for them. So it was not the people were autonomous, but the patriarchal clan leaders were autonomous. They could do whatever they liked with their people and suppress them and profit from them as workers on their lands. And they would make deals with the empire and enrich themselves. And that is also what the PKK is fighting. So, and the PKK's fight has in Turkey weakened the clans very much, but they still exist. And maybe Turkey would say, okay, we are extending our territories, and let's give the clan leaders some power again, and suppress their people again. But then, not in the Ottoman times, there was no PKK, but now there is. So, you know, that would be an interesting dynamic, so to speak.
Thank you. Well, I think that's a really interesting thought to end.
Yeah, can I by the way say one thing? Because as you know, Sarah, I'm if you like my talk, I'm doing a weekly Kurdistan newsletter. It costs a little bit money, $5 a week, so not £5 or euros, only $5 a week. Or if you subscribe for a whole year, it's $50. And you get an update on Kurdistan every Sunday with some exclusive comment or analysis, and with news and with cultural tips and films and books, everything. And if anybody wants to subscribe, you can go to expertkurdistan.com, expertkurdistan.com. It redirects to a very basic subscription form, but well, you know me now, so I thought I don't need in general, Kurds know my work, so I didn't make it like a posh website or anything, just expertkurdistan.com. And if you're willing to take a subscription, that would be very nice. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say this.
I have one, so yes, I can recommend it. Just before we stop as well, just to let you know, in 2 weeks' time, we've got Vladimir van Wilgenberg, who's the joint author of this book.
I can so recommend Vladimir, and the book is really excellent, very good.
And he's going to be discussing what we just touched on briefly, the recent Kurdish unity talks between the main Syrian Kurdish parties, so between the PYD and the KNC. So there's past agreements between these parties have failed, but there's been a recent initiative by the SDF Commander-in-Chief Mazloum Abdi in November, and the two sides are holding talks again. So Vladimir is going to be really discussing the challenges of this and the background to it. So should be really interesting in 2 weeks' time. I don't know if there's anything further that you want to add, Frederike, just before we say goodbye to everybody, or?
Well, thank you all for coming. I love talking about this subject. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for being here. I liked it.
Well, hope to see a lot of you in 2 weeks' time, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah, for organizing.